is on.
This is week 4 of the 8-week program of the International Relation course. Prepare and conduct online. We are now waiting for student to come in. We will start soon. Good morning, Sinan.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Have you read the document?
Rita chờ tại an tao mở định nơi đái mấy chờ tao.
um, I think we will start reading again soon, and then we go through the chapter together. This textbook is very simple. Um, it provide a chapter review, preview, and then you will see the essential part of of the chapter, like the chapter preview they provide, and the chapter will have explained the way in which rationality have been defined and used. The chapter explains different models of decision making process. The chapter explains several ways of capturing the impact of perception on decision making. The chapter explains why history can be a poor guide to make decision to decision making. And the last one, the chapter explains the difficulty in evaluating good decision making. That's five key points in the chapter. Good dear. Good morning.
Good morning, good morning, teacher.
Have you read the chapter 3?
I only read the title because it's so long.
It's so long, right?
I'm sorry.
No, so it's
Yeah, it
fine.
is.
It's long, but um, if you study a little harder, when I was in my master degree, I read like 65 pages a day, the entire day. So like 20 page during breakfast or during in the morning, and then another 20 in the afternoon, and then another like 20 or 25 in the evening. Because like it's always tough if you study overseas. Professor will see that you don't have much work other than just focusing on the study. But in Cambodia, some of the students work and study at the same time. So anyway, try to increase, like to manage your capacity building. Um, Make sure that you can read it as quick as possible. Like in my work as a legal practitioner, I also have to read certain draft document up to 20 or 30 pages, and need to provide feedback within a day. So that's how it works. So when you graduate and then you start your work, and then you will see the upcoming burden if you don't start it now, right? Start the habit of quick reading.
You know, I mean, I love reading, but when it comes to this kind of like political or law and stuff, the word is just so hard for me to understand. So, you know, it's
Mm,
not really interesting.
mm. But overall, there's a lot of like key event addressed like race in the chapter, and it's very interesting to read. You will see. Okay. I think we should start now.
Okay.
Um, Srini, good morning. Hello, Srini. Srini, are you at the office now? Okay. I will just read it again. Chapter 3, how leaders make sense of the world. ជាភាសាខ្មែរយើងថាតើមេដឹកនាំគាត់អាចមើលពិភពលោកដូចម្ដេចយ៉ាងដូចម្ដេចដោយរបៀបណាណានេះគ្រាន់តែជា preview ចំណុចសំខាន់នៅក្នុងជំពូក3នេះគេនឹងពិភាក្សាឬក៏ពន្យល់ the way in which rationality have been defined and used ពាក្យ rationality នេះគឺភាពសមហេតុផលឬក៏យើងនិយាយថាភាពសមហេតុផលហ្នឹងក៏បានដែរយ៉ាងសាមញ្ញការកំណត់និយមន័យហើយនឹងការប្រើប្រាស់ពាក្យ rationality ទី2គឺ explain different model of decision making process ទី2គឺពន្យល់អំពីដំណើរការនៃការសម្រេចចិត្តណានៃការសម្រេចចិត្តទី3 explain several way of capturing the impact of perception on decision making ទី3គឺមធ្យោបាយផ្សេងក្នុងការ capture យល់ពាក្យ capture ទៅណា
Yes.
ក្នុងការយើងប្រើពាក្យកត់ត្រាក៏បានដែរក្នុងការកត់ត្រានៅឥទ្ធិពល impact ឥទ្ធិពលនៃទស្សនៈទានរបស់បុគ្គលជាមេដឹកនាំហ្នឹងលើការសម្រេចចិត្តអញ្ចឹងតើ perception ផុសមនុស្សម្នាក់ហ្នឹងការយល់ឃើញរបស់មនុស្សម្នាក់ដែលមានពីមុនមកមុនពេលដែលគាត់សម្រេចចិត្តហ្នឹងវាជះឥទ្ធិពលអីគេខ្លះទៅលើការសម្រេចចិត្តទី4 why history can be poor guide to decision making អញ្ចឹងការសម្រេចចិត្តมันនៅក្នុងពិភពforeign policy ក្តីនៅក្នុងពិភព international relation ក្តីនៅក្នុងពិភពនយោបាយអន្តរជាតិក្តីការសម្រេចចិត្តរបស់មេដឹកនាំក្នុងពេលបច្ចុប្បន្នមិនត្រូវពឹងផ្អែកលើបរិបទប្រវត្តិសាស្ត្រទាំងស្រុងរហូតទេអញ្ចឹងបើសិនតែយើងឧទាហរណ៍ថានៅពេលដែលមានបញ្ហាអញ្ចឹងប្រវត្តិសាស្ត្រគេសម្រេចថាម៉េចឧទាហរណ៍អតីតកាលគេសម្រេចថាម៉េចយើងព្យាយាមសម្រេចតាមអញ្ចឹងដែរហើយយើងគិតថាពេលនោះវាជោគជ័យហើយពេលនេះក៏អាចនឹងជោគជ័យអាហ្នឹងវាអាចជាការគិតខុសឧទាហរណ៍កលៈទេសៈហ្នឹងស្ថានភាពក្នុងប្រទេសដែលយើងកំពុងសម្រេចចិត្តឆ្ពោះទៅហ្នឹងវាមិនដូចគ្នាក្នុងសម័យអតីតកាលឧទាហរណ៍ The last one is the chapter explain the difficulties in evaluating good decision ជំពូកនេះនឹងបញ្យល់ថាមិនមែនយើង សម្រេចចិត្តថាយើងអាចថាសម្រេចចិត្តទៅជោគជ័យអានឹងគឺជា good decision មិនមែនទេអានឹងយើងវាមានការលំបាកមួយចំនួនដែលយើងអាចនឹងពិភាក្សានៅ the last key point of the chapter. Okay, that's the chapter preview. So 5 key points to be addressed in this chapter 3. We start with do perception matter. Tola, can you have it?
Yeah. Read from the first one,
Yes.
the slide number 4.
No, you read the text.
Oh, read the text. Oh,
Yeah.
I thought slide. Wait.
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3.
Which page? teacher?
It is
Page 53.
53. Okay. How leaders make sense of the world.
Okay.
Do perception
matter? Yeah.
Okay. Do perceptions matter? September 11, 2001 is each in the minds of Americans. The terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center in New York City and the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. are almost universally perceived as an unprecedented attack on the United States. Other simultaneous bombings of multiple locations of London underground of July 7, 2005, each in the minds of British in the same way. While less devastating in their consequences, this bombing were also an attack on an unprecedented scale. But consider the differences in the context. Whereas the British have long endured smaller attacks as a result of Irish Republican Army (IRA) terrorism, Americans generally perceive themselves as immune from attacks on their home soil. In addition, earlier bombing of the World Trade Center and Oklahoma City Mirage Federal Building did not alter American perception of immunity from terrorism nearly as much as did the attacks of September 11, 2001. Perhaps only events in a scale of those of that day had the power to change the long-held perception that the country was safely ensconced between two oceans. In early time, the perception was certainly valid, but as military technology has changed, so has the value of vast oceanous borders. Long before that fateful day, when Americans certainly realized their vulnerability.
Okay.
Continue.
Okay. We stop here and then we discuss a bit.
Okay.
So when you read this one, what are the key events was raised by the author?
Terrorism in the New York City.
One, and another one.
Another one. Wait.
The Irish attack in London. Right?
Yes. Irish attack, IRA. Irish
So
attack.
both of the event are terrorist attack, right?
Yeah.
But we are trying to see the difference between the British people and the American people, how they view the event, like the attack, how they view the attack. Do you see any difference between the British and the American in this text?
They mention the American generally perceive themselves as immune from attacks on their home soil.
Yes, that's the point. That's the point, yeah. And
Yeah.
while the British,
British, the leader, I mean, the leader Janta.
where's the leader Chanta?
Maybe they failed. I don't know. Wait. So March's attack, September. wait.
So the American believe that they are immune from terrorism attack, right?
Yeah.
And the British,
British, I can't find. Wait. Where is that? Oh. Different in the context where British have long endured small attack are the result of the Irish Republican Army.
so like the British experience some attack already,
Yeah.
right? So they see the existence of the terrorist attack in UK, in London, and they know the target, the Irish Army, right? The IRA. That's the difference. Right? In the last paragraph that you read, do you see
Military.
the chain of circumstances where American no longer immune from the attack?
Okay, yeah. No longer immune.
That's the circumstances. Previously, you see, if we see from the geographical perspective, and then American is like located in between two
Oceans.
oceans, right?
Yeah.
And Canada is very close friend, like the allies,
Yeah.
and no one will dare to attack them. Not even Russia, right? Now,
Yeah.
now because of the what? Because of the military technology had changed.
So has
And
the
then
value.
The vast ocean as a border is no longer.
Wait, the military is from America.
The military is
The
what?
military.
Military
The military
technology.
is from where?
The terrorists. The terrorists use that military technology to attack, right? And long before the fateful day that Americans suddenly realized their vulnerability. Right? So from that day on, the American people changed their perception that they are also vulnerable and no longer immune from terrorist attack. Right? That's the point.
One question. IRA, Irish Republican Army. Irish is the people of Ireland, right?
Yes. They don't want to be part of the UK,
Yeah, I see.
They want independent. That's why.
Mhm.
But continue.
So the IRA also attacked the World Trade Center in American, right?
No. There's
So
a
it's
two
two different
separate.
things.
There's a two. There are two separate events. One
Okay.
in UK, one in US. The
Okay.
one, the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, the attack by the Al Qaeda, right? Al Qaeda and Taliban.
Okay.
The attack in London caused by the IRA, the Irish Army. If you see in the slide presentation, I will share now. You see the slide now?
Yeah, we see that.
Okay, this is a two separate event. You see that's a World Trade Center on the left, and on the right is the London Underground. London Underground. It's like metro. You know metro?
Yes.
Metro បើនៅបារាំងគេហៅរទេះភ្លើងក្រោមដីគេមានរទេះភ្លើងក្នុងក្រុងហើយនិងរទេះភ្លើងក្រៅក្រុងណានៅអង់គ្លេសក៏គេមានដែរ underground ហ្នឹងគឺគេបំផ្ទុះគ្រាប់បែកបំផ្ទុះគ្រាប់បែកនៅ World Trade Center នោះគឺជិះយន្តហោះទៅបំបុកចាំហ៎ជិះយន្តហោះទៅបំបុកហើយមានយន្តហោះមួយទៀតធ្លាក់ទៅ Pentagon ទៅអាគារផងអាគារយោធាផងរដ្ឋាភិបាលអាមេរិកThis two separate event, right?
Yeah.
2001
September 11, 2001 in US, and 7 July 2005 UK. Two separate events. The perception of the people in UK and US is different on the event. Then what we have discussed before, the US believe that they are immune from attack on their home soil. And then 9/11 happened. That changed the long-held perception that US was safely ensconced between two oceans. The British has long endured smaller attacks as a result of Irish Republic Army terrorists. Have you ever watched this movie? The Foreigner.
Is it the title of the movie, The Foreigner?
Yeah. You know Jackie Chan?
I know him.
Oh, no.
I watched that movie, and that movie described the exact event of the UK, the British bombing. And then they accused the Chinese. The Chinese who exiled from China and live in UK own a noodle restaurant. That Chinese guy was like ex-military. He was like the Chinese was sent to Vietnam, like border war, and then he escaped be attacked by the Vietnamese people and then go and live in UK. That's the story. And then the British police were trying to arrest Jackie Chan, but Jackie Chan tried to escape and then tried to find out who's behind the attack. Okay, that's the movie. Now, I think you need to read further and then we discuss. Sinet, can you have read? Continue from Tộc La. Hello. Hello, Sinet. Hello, Sarakia.
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you continue from Tộc La? How we perceive our world?
Yeah. How we perceive our world is not only dependent on context, but also quite resistant to change. Perceptions that may have been accurate at one time endure. They become the perspective from which we view the world, the image we have of the world, even if the circumstances have changed. That image guides our interpretation of new information about our environment and the actor in it. Can you or not, sir? Sure.
Continue.
This is true not only of average citizens, but also of decision makers. Their perceptions are guided in part by their personality, belief, experiences, and expertise, but also by how the information is presented, in what context, and by whom. It is tempting to assume that decision makers are different from average citizens. Sometimes they are. There are examples of leaders who did try very hard to view the world from different perspectives and who asked themselves hard questions about the accuracy and wisdom of their own belief and judgment. But there are also many examples of leaders who were not able to transcend the perspectives from which they customarily view their world, perspectives that were informed by their roots in their own society and its culture and history. Those are the leaders who have made decisions that others regard as puzzling or even irrational. For instance, why would the leaders of Argentina decide to invade a group of small islands off their coast in 1982 and risk a war with Britain? Argentina was at the time led by a three-person junta, or military dictatorship, consisting of the president and commander-in-chief of the army, General Leopoldo F. Galtieri, the commander-in-chief of the Navy, Admiral George I. Anaya, and the commander-in-chief of the Air Force, Brigadier Basilio Lamidoso. Can you or not, teacher?
Can you?
There was a long-standing dispute between Argentina and Britain about sovereignty over the islands, called the Malvinas by the Argentinians and the Falkland by the British, which were of negligible strategic and economic value. Hence, it would seem odd for the Argentine junta to risk a war with Britain, which had occupied the island since 1833, even though the Argentine uh, claim to jurisdiction over the island retained the British occupation of them. The disputed sovereignty of the island has been a factor in the relation between Argentina and Britain for a long time and has been the subject of partly successful negotiations between the two countries. The issue acquire a heightened urgency for the Argentine government of the 150-year anniversary of the occupation of the islands by Britain's approach. The recovery of the Malvinas acquire an artificial but powerful significance in the Argentine imagination of 1983, the year of the anniversary approached. In early 1982, the Argentine government called for renewed talks with Britain that were to lead to the recognition of the former sovereignty over the island. Soon, however, negotiation was overtaken by event.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kim Tieng, can you continue? Hello, Kim Tieng.
Yes, yes. The story starts with the actions of an Argentina scrap middle dealer, Constantino Davidoff, who had a contract with the Scottish company to salvage an abandoned whaling station on South Georgia Island, which was part of the disputed archipelago. As was the case on the earlier trip, he failed to observe the requisite formality when traveling to the island. In addition, the Argentine naval transport on which he traveled observed strict radio silence. The British suspected that Davidoff trip that deliberately challenged. Oh my God, I'm sorry. Um, challenged their country's sovereignty over the island and objected to his presence and to the involvement of the Argentine military in his transportations. The foreign ministry of the two countries negotiated the quick departure of the naval transport so as not to jeopardize the upcoming negotiations over the transfer to the island's sovereignty. However, when the naval transport left, Davidoff and his party were not on board. The British press subsequently reported the presence of Davidoff and his group as an invasion of the island. British Prime Minister Margaret
Prime
Thatcher,
Minister.
Prime Minister, okay, thank you. Margaret Thatcher responded by dispatching the HMS Endurance, the only vessel of the British Royal Navy in the South Atlantic, to invade the Argentinians. The Argentine government countered by sending an ice patrol vessel to land Marines on the island to protect Davidoff and his group. Despite the belligerence of these actions, both country governments still sought a diplomatic resolution. Should I continue? Should I
Yes.
continue? Okay.
Yes.
And then the British governor of the Falklands, Reinhardt, asked his government to insist that Davidoff and his group present their passport. Margaret Thatcher government followed that recommendations. The demand and tantamount to acknowledging British sovereignty over the Malvinas British aggressions against Argentina. In response, the Argentine junta decided to invade the island. They did so on April 2nd, 1982. The Argentine leader did not expect the British to respond militarily. They were convinced that there was just cause.
Just
They
cause.
they were
The
just a cause. Just cause.
theirs
They
was
expect that
just
world leader would agree with them.
okay. Continue.
Since many already saw the Malvinas as Argentine territory, in addition, the Falklands are very far from Britain, creating an enormous logistical problem for any military effort. It was inconceivable to the Argentine leader that Thatcher would be willing to make the effort with so little at stake. As the island held little strategic or economic value, the Argentine Foreign Minister Nicanor Costa Mendes reasoned that Britain would act as it had earlier in Sus or Rhodesia, where it had favored negotiations over the use of force. The Argentine junta accept Mendes' interpretations that these historical precedents were analogous to the situation they face. It perceived its own motive in terms of right, justice, and national honor, and saw its action as serving to correct a historical injustice. Reason
Okay.
that international
Continue.
reason that I'm sorry, yeah.
Continue.
Okay. Reason that international options was on their side and afford not was the small state. The Argentine leadership fully expected Britain to relinquish the island. The islands. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
សេពេចបានអាននៅ
នៅchânនៅ
Okay. សេពេច continue from Kim Tieng.
Okay, teacher. Prime Minister Thatcher, however, interpreted situation very different. To her, the irrelevant historical persistence was managed. There where British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain had made a deal with Hitler and given a appeasement a bad name. It compelled her to stand third in the face of Argentina invasion of the small, insignificant and faraway piece of British territories. Her decisions were informed by the right to self-determination of the settler population, who wished to remain under the British rule.
Continue. Hello. Hello, is it Page?
Yes, teacher.
Okay. Mình nhân của anh lứa.
Chọn lưu bị thật năm nó chờ nhưng em là hô ta.
Anh lứa thì despite the logistical problems,
Where is that? Oh. Nhưng không em là đau khổ vậy. Ở ấy chờ được
anh
chờ
lấy
nhưng
ở
em
đây
đây ở lời chờ lưu nhưng
anh lấy được của lửa, ở đây là của chui an nhỉ?
ở ấy trong nhưng em chờ ở ấy. Với hai chị internet cho với nhưng em là hô ta. Despite the logical problem of the conducting a war at the other end of the globe, Britain easily reclaimed the farmland. A leader of Argentina was soundly defeated, both on the world stage and domestically. The junta lost power and self-jailed Tom. Could the leader of Argentina have avoided the catastrophe the verbatim? The case of the Falkland or Malvinas War has been described as the quintessence of poor judgment. The Argentine leader certainly could have benefited from a stronger ability to understand how the British government might interpret the situation. They might have
Khi dân lư
Ất lư chứ.
ọt lư
Ất
đây
lư.
nè. Ở đây là lên chết đó, dân chi dân an được ngọc khía nè. Về lại con an
an moment chờ.
Mình nó ăn lư tiệt. Ở đấy là lấy rồi dân
Chờ nhung cấp tha và hai chị nhung cho cầm thi ở đấng của nhung mình em nó không nâng chứ nhung cho tôi không telegram mà.
lấy thôi đây là khổ quên nhỉ. Cô lên pra cam thi bay buôn là computer là cô download nó print chỉ chapter vậy mà. Vô mình vậy.
Ok. Chờ trong sập hơi nó nhân thời hiện tầng ó mà chờ bao hiện tầng ó nhung tôi print mà sập hơi mọi nhung chưa print mà chapter.
Năng print mà sập hơi mong tới buổi bởi dương ở riêng ó có dương ban mơ xinh như thế. Cô năng mình phải riêng tầng ó thế. Phần thái dương print cả đọc mà vì ấp phải giấu những ngày nào mùi tới là bắt chapter nó chẳng print mà hơi món vì mình ót chứ
đại dương hiện nó cứ nó không sập hơi nó ó mà chờ trong dễ tham định việc
lúc đó vì sập hơi nó bay chapter
tim màn clutcher
chapter thì pi thì bay thì bay chăm lại Cặp đó là cô miên phế là cô nâng đặt tầng o tầng phòng mũi chapter phần đá dương ở miên phế đó chẳng thế domestic constraint on foreign policy making ấy nó còn là cô ập giấy international constraint nó cô nâng giấy clay phần đá dương ở riêng nơi o hè là cô chapter pi bay buồn nhé pi bay buồn.
ok.
Anh download mà thằng O nó cái lọ này download យកទៅមើលទាំងអស់ណាធ្វើម៉េចទេយើងរៀនគេត្រូវរៀន15អាទិត្យយើងរៀនតែ8អាទិត្យណា online វាបានដែរ
ចាហ្នឹងមកពីកម្មវិធីសាលាឬក៏មក
កម្មវិធីវាខ្លីពេក ប៉ុន្តែពួកយើងពេលរៀនយើងបង់លុយមិនដែរបង់គេ discount ឲ្យ 50% អត់ចា
No teacher Pat Fufu Padlet ពីណៃទៀត
ប៉ុន្តែដល់ពេលយើងរៀនជាក់ស្ដែងយើងរៀនអត់បានពេញតែប៉ុតយើងត្រូវរៀនមួយធើមយើងរៀន15អាទិត្យអីណា
លោកមួយថ្ងៃមុនគាត់ឆាតគាត់ទេមកសួរតែឆាតថារៀនអនឡាញមកចុយតែរៀនយូរទៅឃើញទេសួរស្លាប់
អត់អីទេលោកគ្រូឌិនគាត់ជឿជាក់លើលោកគ្រូថាមិនលួចម៉ោងកូនសិស្សអូខេឥឡូវយើងត្រឡប់ទៅគាត់នៅឧទាហរណ៍មួយនេះវាវែងណាឧទាហរណ៍មួយនេះវែងយើងមើលជា slide វិញយ៉ាងខ្លីជាងតិចយើងរៀនប្រហែលជាម៉ោង 9:50 យើងសម្រាប់10នាទីម៉ោង 10 យើងចូលវិញណា
អូខេ teacher
ពេលមិញហ្នឹងយើងអានតពីដុល្លារមកចំណុច key point នៅក្នុង paragraph បន្តពី American ហើយនិង British ហ្នឹង